Why does everything have to have a point? Like, half the time I sit down to draw, I think, I'm drawing a weird guy with a pipe hanging out of his mouth. Or the 17th robot this week. Why am I doing this? What is the purpose? Why draw dinosaurs and dragons? What value does it bring to the world? I get bogged down sometime in the misery of that idea that everything has to have a purpose, as defined by some ethereal or cultural society that hangs above me. Maybe I'm drawing because this is just what I do. It's what I've always done. I've sat down at a table since I was probably 5 years old and scrawled random marks on papers. Maybe it's the only thing that made me stick out from the rest of the crowd when I was in middle school, a time that was already difficult by its very nature. Maybe I enjoy it. Maybe it's just some manner of seeking joy and happiness in this chaotic life. Maybe I'm drawing because it makes me forget that I'm mortal, that this body is slowly decaying away to the sands of time. It's hard to know, and it's hard to ascertain whether any of those things have a point, if they are filled with purpose. And is that purpose? Seeking to avoid the rationality of a body that is slowly decaying away? Seeking joy, seeking happiness? Do those things have purpose? Are they purpose? Is that the point? Do we need a point? Do we care? Welcome to the sketchbook session today. I apologize in advance for my voice. I've been sick for the last little while. I am fighting it, but I don't want to hold off on recording things. So here we are, and we are asking ourselves, what is the point? And does there have to be a point to our artwork? I could immediately argue, as I would imagine some of you are thinking in the back of your minds, that the joy that it brings, the actual act of art in and of itself, is purpose. It is a point. And I think that's probably correct. I think that this is really aimed at this American way of looking at things, that everything has to have a point, it has to have this distinct purpose. And also sometimes from your family, who throw comments at you when they look at certain activities that you put time into and wonder, why are you doing that? That's so pointless. And I've talked recently on the channel about wasting time, and I think that wasting time and the point of things probably tie in with one another. But maybe all of this is pointless. Maybe that's okay. Maybe we dissect things a little bit too much and we don't need to. Maybe there's just some fun in the drawing of little things, and that's okay. And we can allow ourselves to do that. But let's go a little bit of a different direction. Let's actually not take the negative approach. Let's assume that all of this has purpose, that this all has a point. Maybe let's expand on that a little bit. The fact that this drawing that I'm working on right now, which was very early on in this year's Inktober, or actually now it's probably last year's 2023's Inktober, this was one of the first drawings that I worked on. It was one that I wasn't particularly happy with at the time of making it. Though I look back now and I'm like, it's kind of cool. I hadn't totally formulated the character yet, so she doesn't blend in necessarily with some of the latter work, but that's okay. I'm including it now because there was point in it. There was purpose in it. This piece gave me the ability to work through the character concepts, to hone some of the structures, to learn about how I wanted to make the next piece. And for so many of us who are on this journey that truly is a journey, it's not just the execution of a single thing, it is the execution of many things in a path on some random direction toward a dream. Each piece has individual purpose because it pushes us ever forward. Even a piece that doesn't do anything that is logical necessarily, or that is quantifiable, right? So if a piece that you make doesn't sell, a piece that you make doesn't turn out well, the reality is that you learn more sometimes from those crappy pieces, from the paintings that sit in a stack in the corner because they're not good enough to sell, they're not even really good enough to post on Instagram or anything. Like what I post here, what I show on my channel here and on my Instagram is probably 20% of the artwork that I produce. Now that doesn't mean that the other 80% is terrible, it just means that I pick stuff that I either feel is beneficial for you who are listening, that I'm happy with, or that demonstrates whatever it is that I'm talking about. I just arranged a ton of paintings yesterday, going through paintings that are sitting in random alcoves around my house, and I laid them all out, and I had about 45 that are decent, that are probably sellable if I end up putting some pieces in a gallery at some point in the future, or if I end up working at some festivals and art shows. You know, things that I'm just thinking about for the coming year. But there was a stack behind them of partially finished pieces because just like I do in my sketchbooks, I don't finish everything. And then there was an additional stack that was just paintings that are too crappy to sell. In some cases, though, they're intriguing. I sat down to paint an ice cream cone a long time ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And it took me about an hour and a half, and the painting was not good. I didn't post it anywhere. I didn't show anyone except for my wife, who, was of course very encouraging about it. I laughed at how terrible it was. But I sat down the next day and made a painting that was learning from those things that I failed. That's a poor way to say that, but I made a painting of a cupcake. And it had frosting on the top that had similar patterns to what the ice cream looked like. And I actually executed that one well, and I was really happy with it, really excited with it. And that piece only exists because of the failure that came before, which means that failure had a point, it had purpose, right? It now sits in a stack, and I will likely paint over it at some point and turn it into something else, but it had purpose because it pushed me forward, and it was just another day that I painted. And that's sometimes all that we're going to have. On the worst of days, that's all we're going to have. We're going to have a sketchbook full of drawings that are hopefully prompting future good things. And that's okay. We have to work toward being okay with that because it's hard. Because we want to have a sketchbook full of beautiful drawings, and we're just not always going to have that. Sometimes we're going to have the sketchbook that's full of crap, and the next sketchbook is only half full of crap. And the next sketchbook is maybe 40% full of crap, because there'll always be some crap. And there's probably some of you listening right now, and I can hear some people like Raffi and Klee in the back of my head going like, that's not crap. And they're probably right. But we as artists are always going to look at a portion of our work and be like, that's terrible, that's crap. And it might not be. I could look through a student's sketchbook and find very few things that I was dissatisfied with, but that same student probably only had 2 or 3 pages that they were happy with. It's why community is so important. It's why that we have to talk to other artists. That's a bad way to say that, but the voice. It's the reason why it's important for us to talk to other artists, to communicate with other people, because we are not capable of evaluating our artwork alone. We are one human set of eyes and one human brain, and we don't pick up on everything, and we give ourselves a lot of crap, and we don't give ourselves enough grace with our own work. It's why it's important to have community, to have other people around you. They can help point out the purpose and the point behind the pieces that we feel are pointless. And sometimes it's simpler than that. Sometimes just sitting down and working on your drawings, working on your sketches, and enjoying that time rather than hating it is enough of a purpose. Life is hard. There are a lot of things that make this life difficult. There are traumas and tragedies, there's just bad weather, and there's dying too many times to a Dark Souls boss. All of these things make life just a little bit harder. And art, a few minutes here and there of working through some drawing, some sketch, working on the same drawing for day after day after day, can just bring a little bit of happiness and joy. And there's purpose in that. And honestly, there's probably more purpose in that than we ever give it credit, because our joy and our happiness in this fleeting life is very important. The other part of that too is that your artwork, most likely, even though you probably don't recognize this individually, your artwork probably brings joy to people in your lives. If you are older, you have younger siblings, or you have children, there are people in your life that appreciate your artwork. If you're young enough that you're still at home and you have parents around, they probably take joy and some pride in your artwork. It brings happiness to others. And as your skill accelerates, if you get to a point where you can share things online, where you can make videos, where you could even sell artwork, well, that's much more tangible, right? At that point, if somebody's buying your artwork, it's bringing happiness and joy to someone. Otherwise, they wouldn't be spending money on it. So give yourself a little bit of a break, regardless of where you are on that spectrum. Your art most likely brings happiness and joy into this world. And we need those things desperately. So desperately, we need joy and we need happiness. And so if it just brings it to you, that's good enough. But the high likelihood is that it brings it to other people as well. And I think about that as I look at this drawing taking shape, this golem punching into the ground, this little girl jumping away, and these drawings make me happy. They make me happy to produce. My daughter loves looking at them. She thinks they're really cool. I hope you guys enjoy them as well. And now they've become the inspiration for a story that I'm going to try to put together here in 2024, a children's book that I'm hopefully going to have the ability to put together. And I have no idea what that means, because it's a lofty ambition and it's a dream. But I think what it means is I'm going to make all of the illustrations for the same character exploring an underground cavern, and then I'm going to write it all out. I'm going to assemble it all, paint it probably digitally, and then I guess after that point, once all the artwork and stuff exists, I'll figure out, how does one publish a thing? I know that there are different ways to do that. Of course, there's self-publishing, there's Kickstarter, there's all those kinds of things. I even found out last week that evidently I have a contact that is an editor of professional books, which would be really cool. So I don't know, but again, everything starts as a dream, and dreams are important. We have to hold on to those. I think especially as artists, because what we work with is so fluffy. Five Iron Frenzy once had this thing that said, "Words that fluff like a handful of gerbils," and I love that phrase because it makes so little sense, but it's just, art is like that. It's this thing, these dreams that we hold on to that are so intangible, but they're so real. They're like emotions, they're ideas, they're concepts, they're dreams, they're loves, but they don't have physical form most of the time. But they're no less important. So yeah, I'm sharing this with you because I hope you will have the guts this year to do things that are big, to follow dreams, to try things that are difficult, and to understand that if they fail, that's okay. That's part of their purpose, is to propel you forward to the next thing. So as always, thank you for listening. I very much appreciate it. I would love to hear from you in the comments below about what your dreams are. I'll continue sharing some of mine, so please don't feel embarrassed or ashamed or anything like that. We all have crazy dreams, and some of them are actually crazy, and that's okay. Like, the best things that humanity has achieved have always been crazy dreams. So have a good one, y'all. See you soon.